welcome back. It's Christine again with the Artist Pod, and today we'll be drawing part 2 of the cat coast that we worked on last week. So last week we drew the sheet over top the cat. Honestly, if you wanted to end it there, that would be perfectly fine. You know, if you have the sheet, the cat can just kind of be floating in place. This week we're actually going to draw the cat underneath the sheet. So you'll see just a little bit of the cat. It's the paws and the tail and the feet. As always, I'm using a Wacom Intuos Pro tablet, and I'm drawing straight into Photoshop. So let's get arting. Alright, so now that we have the ghost in, I'm going to draw basically a tabby cat. An orange tabby, but with some white. So we're going to have, you know, a white pattern by the feet, on the stomach, and then orange elsewhere. So here, the fur would be, not that way. Would be in shadow, right? It's tucked under, you have the blanket blocking it, so all of this fur would be in shadow, but you know, we're building it up like fur, so we're not going to try and mimic that blanket, but I am going to fill it in completely. Definitively this is in shadow. And then it would be transitioning over to like an orangey on top. And then likewise under here, it's the same thing. This would be in shadow. Because it's turned underneath, right? So all that's in shadow, so we're filling that in completely. Then we're going to get down in here, so now we have to determine where the orange and the white are transitioning, right? So, you know, you're going to have the white coming down. And then it's going to be going over. As we come up through here, I'll have the white through here. I am doing all of this in shadow right now, but some of this is likely going to have some highlight. It's just going to be a little easier doing it in shadow. And then right around the knees, transitioning that over, right? So allowing that to be an orange tabby. Still again filling this whole thing in shadow. Some of it would be in shadow, but some of it would be in highlight. Not much of the cat to draw really. Over here we're going to have more in highlight than over there, but I am still going to do the whole thing in shadow. So usually I don't have it kind of rolled like this, but a cat's belly, sometimes their fur can, well, long-haired cats in particular, right? Their fur can get long and twisty, especially on their tummies. But over here, just like over there, right, we're going to have a point where this cuts, and the knee will have the orange of the tabby. Okay. So, before I add the highlights to that, I am going to go ahead and get the orange in place. I actually don't know that I realized I was on the orange. So we're going to just sort of choose this kind of orangey color. Now there are stripes typically on a tabby, potentially not as much on the feet, so we're going to get this in real fast. Again, doing this in shadow, but some of this would potentially be in highlight because it's peeking out of the sheet and pushing forward. So some of the paw here is probably going to be in highlight. We'll do that before we do the white, but we're going to get all of the orange in first. Same over here. We're going to make this a little smaller because I accidentally made this paw a little bigger than I did its companion paw on the other side. Still going to have this the same down here where this is cut off with the white. It'll be easier. And then we're going to change it from there. And cut it right around in here. Right around in there. Still make this pop out, but otherwise cut it short. And then down here, you would potentially be getting some stripes still. So I'm gonna leave a few gaps. Still doing this in shadow. The closer towards the stomach you get, the less likely I think the striping would be. And again, you know, on this side, probably more striping. And we have down into the feet, and technically by the eyes, but I can get rid of the sketch layer before we do that, since I'm still doing this in shadow. Once again, potentially some striping as we get closer towards the inside of the foot there. But it would be, you know, somewhat uniform. So you'd be going along. And then maybe have like a little stripe coming through. And then some more of the orange. Same on this side. Still doing all this in shadow, even though some of it would be highlight. Same thing, get some striping, sort of doing this on the fly. So you'd have it kind of going in an arch. Now at one point I was going to have the tail be covered with sheet, and I've changed that, so I just sort of ignored how I have it. Tail certainly would be covered with stripes. Same thing, you know, as I do a stripe, it goes in kind of a arch. Right, so you'll come up and over. It's a little easier to see it probably here than it was on the other. And we're going to do the arch to indicate that the tail itself is rounded. Now tabbies wouldn't necessarily have black in their stripes. It would be just a darker orange, which we'll probably do, like a darker orange. We could do black though. I think that would probably be fine, but a darker orange would probably work better. Bearing in mind what direction my little swipes should go. Right, probably a little bit here before we get up into here, where I'm going to finish out the whole tail without any other stripes. Okay. Now, if I take off that sketch layer, so we're going to add in highlights for the orange. Oh, I guess I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to add just a little bit, not a lot. Yeah, just like it's catching. And then especially underneath where the light is clearly hitting the eye here, but then allowing that to fade. So there wouldn't be much for it to see, but just enough of a hint that there's something by the eyes there. Okay. Now for highlights, right, you're going to have full pin pressure here, or more lines really because of the way we did it, separating its little toes out, allowing it to fade as it goes into both rounding underneath and as it goes into the sheet. Well, probably be some highlighting as it goes in, but you're transitioning. Right, so we have first paw. Which I'm going to extend this down a little bit. So just making sure the edges of what I've drawn make sense. Right, and the next paw over here, there would be a gap going into the sheet for sure, but you would still have some highlighting. And then as it goes over, less and less highlighting. And over here, the sheet would be causing some shadowing to drop, but you're on the side of the highlight, so maybe not as much. And especially once you clear that, you're free and clear. All edges would be in shadow. Right, and then as we sort of round underneath, and then over here, more shadow. But we're going to give it a little bit of a burst with some of it. Okay. All right, and then, down here, this would be highlight. Part of it would be, I should say, not all of it. It's going to go into some shadowing, and then you have where, he's kind of half sitting on top of his legs, so some of this would be shadow. Some of it would be in highlight. And then over here, almost same thing. You have that little bit of highlighting on his foot. And that's going to transition. Right. And then of course, his tail. You're going to have, his tail is sort of independent of the rest of his body because it comes out behind him. But it does round down, right? So you're going to have some highlighting, and then it kind of rounds down and away, right at the edge of that sheet. Some highlighting kind of here in the middle, and then it rounds down and away. Highlighting, and now as it turns, it's changing the angle of the highlight, right? So angling it more towards the middle, and then here, this back side definitely in shadow. This side is now turned towards the light, so it's only going to be that edge that's in shadow. Same thing over here, right? Back edge definitely in shadow. Right, same thing, back edge in shadow. A little bit happening here, and then same thing with the tail tip. Going to go right up to the edge of that hand. Hand, paw, whatever. You get it. Okay. Now, you can add a darker orange to the stripes. I think we're going to do just a little bit, just to fill it in. Otherwise it looks kind of unbalanced. If I need to, I can darken this up more than what I already have. It's a significant difference, but gosh, if it doesn't look like it's almost the same color. have to darken this up. It's easy enough to do. I'm doing the highlights and shadows all on the same layer, so it'd be easy to darken it. I'm going to finish up the tail and I will be right back, and then we'll look at changing the color that we chose. If we darken that up, okay, that's a significant stripe happening. Maybe a little bit more than it needs to be, but that's fine. It still works. Okay, and then we're going to go back to the white and add in some highlighting here, because there would be some right under here, and then we're going to go into some shadow as we come up under both the cat and the sheet are going to be casting some shadows. I'm potentially still catching some light, just like this far side was, just that little bit. Yeah, nothing big. Maybe even a little less than that. More like it's going to be through here. But not fully underneath. I think this would probably be better if I cut it right around here. Doing all the wrong layers at the moment, but that's fine. A ghost cat. Alright, so that's how you draw a cat ghost. I hope that's helpful. In the Floating Nether next to me, I have other videos of art tutorials I have done, and I will see you all soon. Thank you so much. Take care.